I want to welcome everyone to today's webinar hosted by the Global Agritourism Network. My name's Lisa Chase. I'm with University of Vermont Extension and the Vermont Tourism Research Center. And in just a minute, we're going to be diving into the role of NGOs in agritourism development, and we're going to be especially focused on an example from Eastern Europe. And we're going to hear from a great moderator and two very impressive panelists. But before we get into today's topic and we introduce the moderator and panelists, I want to take a moment to mention that this webinar is hosted by the Education Committee of the Global Agritourism Network. I see some familiar names and faces here. So, well, names anyway, I can't see your faces, but I recognize that some of you are members of the Global Agritourism Network, and I want to thank you for your involvement. It's been not quite 2 years now. The official launch of the Global Agritourism Network was on April 11th in 2023. So we're getting on 2 years old, and already in less than 2 years, we have almost 1,000 members from 101 countries. It's currently free to join. And if you're interested in being a part of this network, click on the link, globalagritourismnetwork.org, that will drop into chat, or you can use this QR code to navigate to the Global Agritourism Network website, and there you'll see a link to join this free network. The goal of this network is to bring people together from all different parts of the world and everyone working in agritourism. So whether you're a farmer or a researcher, or you do technical assistance, or you work in tourism, or you're a community planner or a policymaker, we think there's great benefit to working all together and to learning from each other. And that's why we've developed the Global Agritourism Network. Part of what the Global Agritourism Network does is we host a series of webinars. We also have several committees: research, education, regional committees, policy, regenerative agritourism, all sorts of committees that focus on different topics. And one of the things that we really like to do is get a huge variety of people involved. So right now, I want to get a sense of who is here in the room with us. And I'm sharing the results. And you can see that where about a quarter of us are farmers and ranchers. And let's see, about a third are researchers, another quarter are tourism professionals. And then we've got quite a good mix of service providers, nonprofits, business owners, and other. When you're I should mention, when you're introducing yourself in chat, especially if you select other, let us know what your other is. I'm now stopping the results because what I want to do is move on to introducing our moderator, Dr. Todd Koman. Dr. Koman is currently a consultant in the rural tourism sector, but for many years, he was a professor and dean of hospitality and tourism management. He's now retired from that, but he is still as busy as he's ever been. He has spent the past 30 years working in the tourism, hospitality, and agricultural sectors. And I met Dr. Koman a little over 20 years ago when I first started working working at University of Vermont Extension. He was one of the first people who I realized had a deep understanding of agritourism in Vermont and around the world. And he invited me to join him on a farm, Adams Family Farm in Wilmington, Vermont, which was a real leader in agritourism in Vermont at that time. Dr. Komen has been working in planning and developing rural and ecotourism experiences for 30 years now, and also educating hospitality and tourism professionals at the university level here in Vermont and in other states like Massachusetts. However, before he got into academia, he actually ran an agritourism destination in Wisconsin. This is back in 1982. He and his family were running a small country inn located on a 140-acre working farm in Northern California. And then in the 90s, Professor Komen founded and directed the Apple Works, an agritourism destination and organic apple orchard operation in Wisconsin. Since 2002, over 20 years now, Todd has been conducting workshops on the topic of integrated rural tourism, and he's provided tourism expertise for many different NGOs, non-governmental organizations, as well as private enterprises, not only here in Vermont and the US, but also in a number of countries, including Romania, Poland, and Belarus. And his work in Belarus has had many offshoots, including leading up to this webinar today. Todd, I'm going to hand it over to you now.
Thank you very much, Lisa, for that kind introduction. And you took way too long to describe all the things I've done in 30 years, but it's been a pleasure to be working with you and so many other people around the world. And my greatest joy is to see this global agritourism network blossoming as we move forward. Greetings from snowy Vermont. We're in the depth of winter here, and now that I'm retired, I spend time skiing, either on backcountry skis or downhill skis. So Lisa makes it sound like I'm busy, but really I'm spending a lot of time on agritourism. Today we have two distinguished guests from Eastern Europe, European nation Belarus, Dr. Valeria Klitsounova and Darya Pukas, who recently completed her MBA from Colorado State University. I want to congratulate Darya here in public because it's quite an accomplishment for her coming from Belarus, moving to the US, and then completing an MBA program. So congratulations. Today, they will be talking about the Rural and Agritourism Association called Country Escapes and the Belarusian Greenways project that began over 20 years ago and which developed into an association with nearly 3,000 members, representing homestays, farm tours, culinary activities, and a wide variety of experiences in rural communities. Before we get started, please be sure you introduce yourselves in the chat. And now I want to share my screen. Just have to remember how to do that, because I want us to situate ourselves in Eastern Europe, which is what this presentation is focused on. So here we have a small map of Eastern Europe with many countries represented. I think there's 20 or 21 countries, and Russia to the east, and then Western Europe to the west. And I'd like to find out from those of you who are participating, how many of you have visited any of these countries in Eastern Europe? And if so, which countries? And I think Lisa has a poll. So if you would click on all that apply, that would be fantastic. And you may have to scroll down as well, because like I said, there are 20 or 21 countries in this very interesting and rich region. As we look at the map, we can see that these countries make up a tapestry of cultures and peoples. They have a lot in common, which I've noticed when I've visited Poland, Romania, and Belarus, but they also have very unique lifeways based in part on their specific geographies, geologies, climates, histories, and sociocultural influences. So as we're speaking, if you could fill out this poll, please, and I'll introduce Valeria Klitsounova, who likes to go by the name of Lyra. It's just shortened Valeria.
Thank you.
She's been instrumental in the development of rural tourism in Belarus for the last 25 to 30 years. For 25 years, she was a professor of tourism at the Belarusian State University, where she loved working with students. And indeed, Darya is one of her former students. She loved introducing them to the exciting opportunities in the field of tourism, and indeed traveled with student groups doing projects in different countries in Eastern Europe. She started out as a CEO of her own travel agency and was the manager of the Duduki Museum of Rural Heritage and Culture, which I had the privilege to visit with her and witness some of the hands-on activities and demonstrations that are the focus of this interesting living museum. Her work has taken her to many countries in Eastern Europe, where she has collaborated with local leaders and presented workshops and lectures on developing rural tourism associations, businesses, and successful tourism destinations. Lyra is the mother of agritourism Belarus, and so much more to her students and her colleagues who have benefited from her knowledge and experiences over many years. Before we have Lyra get started on her presentation, let's have a quick look at this poll, Lisa. Well, this is fabulous. People have made many visits to different countries in Eastern Europe. Some of you may live in one of those countries, but others may live in Western Europe, in the US, in other countries around the world, and have spent time in Eastern Europe. So you know it well, and now we look forward to hearing from Valeria Klitsounova and Darya Pukas. Valeria, take it away.
Thank you. Hello. Добрый день. Привитание из Беларуси. It's a little bit of Belarusian to give you impression that it's different from Russia. This is the topic of my presentation, and I think that non-government organizations play vital roles in this part of the world, because everybody lived during socialism time, and it's a little bit changed the attitude. People like networking because they like each other. And when they started to develop rural tourism, there is no any entity organization which can help them. Next slide show my career. Todd told already. Maybe I want to pay attention on that book about tourist development in post-Soviet nations. I wrote it together with my colleague from George Mason University. But what is special about this book, we gave a voice of many researchers from Eastern Europe. This is the result of their researchers. Next, please. And this is just, I think maybe most of you know, main activities of rural tourism NGO. We have a lot in our part of the world. Of course, it represents and lobby interest of rural tourism provider, promote rural tourism, educate, develop tourism products like rural tourism or agritourism, also provide quality standard certification, do marketing, and develop cooperation, networking, team building. It's very important to make a team from people. This is different level of institutions and in rural tourism. The highest level, like a global level, it's of course GAN, Global Agritourism Network. Next is interregional level. For example, Eurogid, now they call probably rural travel or tourism, European Federation of Rural Tourism. Belarus was a part of this organization for a long time. Also national organization, association, regional institutional level, and local, like local tourism public council, thematic villages, eco-museum, etc. This is our National Association of Eastern Europe. Why did I put these slides? Just to demonstrate diversity and of course the logos and different organizations. They have different name. Rural tourism, rural green tourism, farm tourism, agro and eco tourism, etc. But this is why it's complicated to separate agritourism from different kind tourism in a village, because Eastern Europe is different from, let's say, USA or Australia. People used to live for years, 1,000 years there. They live in villages. It's mixed of agriculture, of intangible heritage, of folklore, of different kind of monuments. That's why this is like tourism in a village. Next slide, please. This is about our association. We started it in 2002. There was nothing, even nobody used the word or like agritourism or rural tourism. No word like that. We just didn't have even nothing. And for 20 years, I think we did many things. 500, it was our members. We realized 40 international projects together with our partners from all over the world, 1,000 seminars, webinars, international conference, greenways, and this is what we did for 20 years. Next slide. This is history of our organization. Association Country Escape. We united people. was most complicated job, first step. Because nobody understands what is this, we wrote lots of articles in a newspaper and describing people or telling them that not only agriculture can give you money when you are in a village, it could be tourism, because you know so many things which are exotic and interesting for locals and for foreigners, that go ahead, let's do it. And first people came, then more and more, so it was the beginning. Then we organized very first agritourism conference in our country. Lithuanian, Ukrainian expert came and government donors. Actually, everybody liked this idea because we have beautiful, calm country, nice, hospitable, open heart people. So let's do it. We promote very seriously a law about agritourism or rural tourism, because people from the village was going to do it. It was very easy rules of game, not complicated housekeeping, nothing complicated. Just give people to feel this business and to realize themselves. We have a special financial program and educational program. I like our invention laboratory of rural tourism. Many people, many experts all together. It was like a melting pot for nice outcomes and different level for basic, advanced, and special topics, and standard and certification, which was taken from our European partners. Next slide. We develop tourism products. We realized more than 40 projects and did a big promotional campaign. One of the our last interesting was our own YouTube channel. It was like our own TV. We introduced different innovation cases for stakeholders and created a brand. Belarus is a rural tourism country. Frequently asked questions. This is what people are interested in. How did you start this organization? I told you already. How many people worked for the organization? It was just a few, me and my partner, because before I had a travel agency, 2 or 3 people, and a lot of students help us and volunteer. Budget, actually nothing, but we have first grant from Eurasia Foundation. This is organization from USA, and we survived during 20 years. Why I tell you survive? Because in our country, government does not support non-governmental organization. They accept them. But we have donors. Next slide, show you where money goes from. We have certain membership fee. We have grants. We were part of international projects. This is when we have a good salary. Lots of volunteer in kind. Some people give us computer or organization donation and personal saving. You can see who used to be our donors. Next slide. This is dynamic. We started from nothing, but in 2022 there were more, in 21 more than 3,000 homesteads. Next slide. And this is how many tourists we have in our village, more than 500,000. Believe me that when we started, nobody even could imagine that people can go a tourist to village. What are they supposed to do? It was a question for everybody, and we try to explain and understand and to attract people to villages. It's not Italy, climate is not good, there is no many monuments, but there are many other things we promote. Their hearts, their nice food, their nice landscapes, their knowledge, their technology, craft, etc. And this is just a 4-period main in this process. We started first when we started in 2002. It was the question, we didn't have even a house with toilet or facility. We started to invest a lot, explaining people how to do it and standards and quality. That we started to think about tourism product to create, to united people, and did something decent. This is our achievement. When we got from National Geographic travel awards in 2016, first prize, we were chosen as the country of agritourism. Of course, Russian voted because it was for Russian, but it was 140 millions. And then it's happened in 2018, and in 2020, when COVID started, we supposed to host this event from World Tourism Organization. And this is some main trends in Belarusian rural tourism. Creativity and innovation. We invest a lot in creativity, trying to explain our people what is creative economy, because using their knowledge, talents, traditions, they can create nice product, nice experience, as they were very successful in that. Also, my students in our university, we try to involve them in our activity and even created a branch of Faculty of International Affairs, Tourism on our organization. It worked wonderful. Of course, ecological safety, accessibility, we did a great project and now are trying to do all products accessible. Gastronomy pay a lot of attention, not only because gastronomy connected with endorphin, serotonin, and make people happy, but it's traditions. Cooperation with tour operators. We have many tour operators now. They organize tour using interesting places in the village. It could be farmers, it could be beekeeper, it could be folklore, but they bring tourists, which is very important. Thematic festival, and of course, selling farm products. It's a good opportunity for farmers. A few words about greenways, which Todd mentioned. Actually, greenways was born, this concept, in USA. But, you know, what is it? A trail leading people to the nature or interesting routes. But in America, they provide possibility for people to go to the nature. But in our case, nature is open, forests belong to all. You may go whatever you want, wherever you want. But we use these greenways to develop village, to develop economic, to bring tourists, to create something special and to unite people. Next slide. One of the first and very successful was this, not far from Minsk, Belarusian routes. You see there are many, I don't know, operation working together. Next slide, Dasha. And this is how it started. 20 active people, homestay owner, craftsmen, farmers, historians, different. And this is what you may try when you travel around. And this is NGO, Cooperative of Rural Tourism Development in this region. They have a special, even officially registered company. And this is a logo of different and operation to rural tourism and agritourism, which work together in frame of one project we managed to do with them, their logo. Next, and this is memorabilities and souvenirs you can buy when you travel along these greenways. And now a couple of examples from homestay, from real people. This is real cases. This is the farm Vilia Agro. One of the very big, around 2,000 hectares. I must say you that we never had individual farmers till 1991. Everybody works for collective farmers, and people who decided to work separately, they were like heroes in that time because it's they went against all rules. Yes, it was legal, but nobody actually approved it. But they demonstrate that they may reach success, and they did. And I want to show you these very successful people. This is Vasily. He took about 2,000 hectares. He has cows, sheep. This is agritourism, of course, farming. And he opened even 2 shops for selling their products, mini zoo. But he later created a big house, big guest house for his wife, who is a wonderful cooker. She sings songs, and together they're a nice couple, and they together enrich all this product. And he, next slide, he is more in agriculture, and she is more in hospitality. This is their house, this is their different events. Next. This is a farm. They produce goat cheese, goat milk, and they are the first certified farm. And his land, more than 100 land, they owned it, but they cannot sell it. It's not really ownership, but ownership for us. And this his wonderful goats and his product. And this is we also help him to develop this maize and kukupoles. And when they opened, it was the first maize. Actually, we've seen the best example in USA and in Poland, and it's very popular. Next slide. This is his certificate, and this is some of his product. Now they are in the best supermarket of our country. This is another concept. Some people from the city, Minsk and other cities, they moved to village because they wanted to start this business, something like agritourism. Many of them started from hospitality, this house, for example. Then they started to have guests. This question came, where are we going to take food? Because everybody wanted eco, local. They started to take land and to do farming, to do agritourism. And this is one of the best and my favorite farmstead, Hanka. He's also a musician, very talented. And they did wonderful facility for wedding, puppet theater. But his daughter decided to become professional in bread making. And it's one of the best bread now in our country. But he took 30 hectares of land to put a rye and to have his own grain. So farming is growing. Next slide. And here you see as a group of an English tour operator visited they're making bread, participating in this master class, and they did their own decoration. And this guy, he has this crafted bag with the logo of the farm, and he's going to go next day to UK and bring this bread, which tells a lot about agritourism. Next, please. And this is just two last slides about partnership. Yeah, when people start to work together, of course, it's a dilemma. Everybody has more for himself or herself, but it doesn't work. Next slide, Dasha. Darya. And the idea is partnership is the best when everybody had his food and everybody happy. Next slide. And I want to thank you for attention. Maybe I was a little bit too much, but not too much.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Valeria. That was fabulous. A great description of what you've done in the last 20 years and how far Belarus and rural and agritourism has come. Now, would you like to introduce Darya for us, please?
Yes, with pleasure. But first, I want to thank Todd, who came 20 years ago in our country, helped us a lot. And I like his concept of integrated rural tourism, because how can we distinguish or divide agritourism in our Eastern European country? It's about impossible. Thanks for wonderful idea, Todd. And this is Darya. Darya used to be my student. And when she was, I don't know, the third year student, she came to our organization because we have been working with university. I was working there, and she is, I don't know, for internship and stay for many, many years. She became a project manager. She knows about as much people as I. She's been many, many places, and people like her. She did a survey with our members and people who work in agritourism, and now she went to Colorado State University, MBA Impact, and I think that it's helped her and us in the future, because Dasha, nobody let you go out from agritourism. This is Darya Pukas.
Hi everyone, Valeria and Todd, thank you a lot for introduction, and thank you all for joining us today. It's a pleasure to see so many people from different parts of the world, and I hope this webinar will be somehow useful and inspiring for you. And yes, this is a little bit about me. As Valeria told, we've been working actually together already like exactly 10 years. I still cannot believe how times fly by. I just recently graduated from Colorado State University, and I'm actively engaged in strategic plan committee of GAN. And today I will continue Valeria's narrative about the role of nonprofits in agritourism development, and I will share with you some of the examples of the projects we did together. As Valeria mentioned, it was over 4 of them, and of course, there's no way we can fit all of them in this webinar, but I'll do some examples, and if you're interested, we can be in contact later and we'll share the rest of them. But before that, I want to add some facts to whatever Valeria already shared with you about agritourism in Belarus and development of rural areas. So we have kind of unique and interesting situation, because during the Soviet Union times, the majority of farms, they were state-owned. And even now, many farms in Belarus, they're actually state-owned, and there are just few of private big farms. So the situation is very different from Northern America has. And as a consequence, the rural lifestyle is a little bit different. So many people live there in villages, in houses. They have a small piece of land, but they're not farmers. They usually grow some products for themselves for their own consumption, but they hardly sell it. Sometimes they do that, but not that much. And as a result, agritourism, as we understand it, it's not just farms, but it's also some people who live in villages in their own houses, and they host tourists in their houses and show them the hospitality of our country and our traditions. And traditions is very also important thing. We have a lot of people who are doing crafts, cooking traditional meals and trying to promote these traditions that we had over thousands of years. Also, if you talk about agritourism, communities play a very important role. And we know many, many, many examples when people started their agritourism businesses in their rural area just because they were inspired by their neighbor and they saw that their neighbor is bringing tourists to their area, and they're like, well, I can do this and that, and probably I can sell it, and probably we can cooperate somehow with each other and do something better together. And as already Valeria mentioned, usually we didn't have much financial support from government or even international organizations, and this is why people fostered their creativity a lot. And many initiatives, even what Valeria showed you already, they were done with very small amount of money and just some pure enthusiasm, which is very impressive. But let's dive into some more specific examples of what we did. And the very first project I want to share with you is connected with women entrepreneurship in one of the regions in Belarus. That was the project that was supported by the Coca-Cola Foundation in 2019. And well, we worked a lot with farmsteads, with farms, craftsmen in rural areas, and we noticed that we have a lot of women who has some hobbies, but they're kind of like very busy with their households to make it a profitable business, or they probably are too afraid just because they don't have a lot of like education, not a lot of enough, I don't know, knowledge about promotion or starting businesses, or they simply don't have money. And when we've heard that Coca-Cola has the very ambitious project, it's called 5 by 20, when they're promised to educate 5 million women around the world by 2020, we decided that it's a perfect opportunity that we can use. And we created sort of school when we educated 500 women living in rural areas on different topics, started with accounting, finished in strategic planning and promotion. We conducted over 30 educational events. And out of these 500 women, we selected 5 business initiatives that received financial support. And here you can see some of the pictures, how everything was going on that time. So we actually had some international experts. On the bottom photo, you probably can barely see, but there was one expert from Sweden who is the head of European Culinary Heritage Network, and he shared some insights about culinary tourism with our participants. And there were a lot of different study visits, very interesting, very inspiring for our women. Oh, and what I didn't mention is that we targeted at 3 main areas. It's farming, agritourism, and crafts. So we did a lot. We supported financially very differently. So we purchased some equipment for cooking or clay modeling, or we bought chickens, cows, goats, equipment for making honey, herbs, like very, very, very different things. And it was very inspirational for us because we didn't expect such amount of creativity from our participants. And we decided to pull it all together and make some promotional materials as promotional booklet. And we did the whole movie about women in business. And I believe Shauna will share with you the link to this movie. And I highly recommend you to take a look at that because it's very special. And it's very inspiring to see these women talking about their businesses and how they decided to do that and how they're enjoying doing that. And every time I watch it, I love it. So what helped us to pull it all together and make a successful project? First, we didn't afraid to connect different stakeholders. We partnered a lot with local authorities, local nonprofits, and experts. We select promotional tools very wisely because, sometimes it's kind of struggle to work with rural areas. It's very hard to reach out the people you want to reach out. And we did some ads in local newspapers. We made promotions on Instagram. Like we tried to reach every woman of different ages, of different occupation, and I think we did it quite successful because we had 500 women. I think for a 9 million population country, it's quite impressive. And we maintain constant contact with our project participant. We organize a lot of informal networking among them. And this project, in many ways, inspired us to the next one. And it's connected with creation of the tourism cluster in the same region, in Brest region. And it was a part of big UNDP European Union project. And so when we work with so many women who did so many different things, we realized that we have a lot of crafts and traditions that we need to preserve and promote somehow. And we have so many different players in different corners of these regions, and it would be a good thing to make them work together, collaborate with each other, and promote everything what they do to local and international tourists. And we also know that they compete a lot with, corporations and big retail stores. And it's very hard to do it on your own when you don't have so much money as big corporations do. But when you're together, you can do a lot. And this is why we decided to make a tourism cluster where we included craftsmen, local food producers, local museums, farms, homestays, in order to help them to support each other and promote something big together. And how, again, it's rural area. And we were thinking how we can reach out all our potential participants. So we did local announcements in local newspapers. We did publications in national press, and a lot of people in Belarus press nowadays. We did post on projects, partners' websites, because we had around 6 partners from business, nonprofits, and local authorities. And we set some criteria for our participants that their product should be local, crafty, so sort of unique, and environmentally friendly, because we care a lot about our environment and we pursue our sustainability goals. Actually, Belarus is one of the, I would say, probably leaders in implementing sustainability goals, SDGs set by UN. And I want to note that it was the very first experience of creating such a cluster in Belarus. And we knew that brand usually plays a big role in promotion of such initiatives, and that our brand should reflect all the 3 criteria, that we set. And we called our brand Novakoli, which is
Thank you very much,
very
Darya.
close by.
Thank you very much. You've done a superb job, and I know you could go on and on, but we do have a few questions, and I think one of them is an interesting one: is how important is domestic tourism in Belarus as opposed to international tourism? Are people from Minsk, the main city, traveling to these rural communities?
For example, yes, now a lot, because after 2020 we have sanctions and not plane or flying to our country, and not much tourists, especially in COVID time. And since that time, Belarusian went and discover their own country, because they travel abroad, and they didn't know how much was done. And most of tourists are locals. It's in all agritourism, for the exception maybe Italy, but we have foreigners. Yeah, Dasha. And more than 500,000 tourists goes to villages, to agritourism.
Yeah,
So,
sorry, go ahead.
so
No.
domestic and international travelers are very important to cater to, it sounds like.
Sure. They bring money to people who started this business. For them, it is business, and we should support it. It should be profitable. Otherwise, only beautiful words.
Right. Now, another question came through, and I don't know if it'd take too much to explain the Decree 318. I don't know what that is.
Decree is the highest level of law in our country, because president is on the top, and his decree higher than any laws. And we wanted to protect and promote these people. That's why we wanted for them very special conditions, and only president and his decree could provide it. They were free from any taxes for some times. They could do hospitality, they can cook, they could organize excursion, many things which are actually like a professional business, but they were allowed to do it just to keep keep village alive, because in that time it was very hard for them, for villages to survive. Now this decree is about over, a lot of changes, but for 20 years we've got many strong, bright people who prove this agritourism, rural tourism is a great business. So it's a great business for people, it's a great business for society, because it's based on our tradition and
Great, thank you.
sustainable
So, in
development.
other words, from the very top, there was a tax holiday for people in rural villages who were engaged in agri and rural tourism, and this helped incentivize people to get into this type of business.
Yeah, it was like that.
Thank you. Other questions that are out there? Lisa, do you have any questions?
Yes, well, we've had some interesting questions about land ownership. How that works between the government owned, the collectives, and the privately owned land. And along those lines, we also had an interesting question. I think it was from Sylvia about Sylvia, how in many parts of the United States, farmers doing agritourism are sometimes they have to reclassify their land as commercial and not agricultural, depending on the activities that they're offering on their farm. And the question is, can you tell us more about the land ownership situation in Belarus and the classifications in terms of what's allowed under agriculture versus commercial activities?
Yeah, with pleasure. In our country, we do not have private ownership for the land. I mean, in classical version, because you can't sell your land. You can't sell land. You can sell your house and a half or a quarter of hectares around, but not really land. When farmers, first individual farmers appear, they took land from government, probably for free, and they should work and make profit, and it belonged to them, but they can't sell it. They can inherit it. All their children will be the owner of this land. So this is about ownership. And when you live in a village, you have land around your house. It's normally a quarter of hectares. You can take another quarter or a half of hectares for agriculture, or you can rent more land for doing agriculture. That's something like that. But you can't buy land in our country, especially if you are a foreigner. About second question was about
Classifying, it sounds like you don't need to
Yeah,
classify your land as business or commercial.
yeah, we don't have this kind of classification, but if you take land for, but we have a category of land for agriculture activity. And this nobody can touch now, especially president is looking and controlling, because this is our land. This is land we can give a food to the country. So if you take land, you should use it for agriculture. When we started our museum, we took like 200 hectares for for agriculture, but started museum on this. Yes, it was Museum of Rural Culture, but it's not really agriculture. And we had a with conflict and problem, but we solve it. And we do agriculture on most of our land, but we have a museum building, we have windmill, then stable, sauna on the riverbank. But in general, the rest of land we use in agriculture. You should do agriculture if you take land for activity like that.
I think we have time for maybe one more question. And this last question I'm looking at, apologies to everyone who put in a question that we don't have time for. This last one is a general question that I'm going to give Todd the opportunity to answer, and also an opportunity for Lyra and Darya to give final words. So this question in chat is agritourism an alternative form of tourism to mass tourism, or is it another form of mass tourism in general? What's your take on that, Todd, Lyra, and Darya? And please combine with that your final words for the webinar.
Well, I think it's a great question, and I'm sure that the GAN steering committee and many others have been grappling with where does agritourism fit into the entirety of the tourism mix. And I would say, since it takes masses of amounts of bed spaces and restaurants and food service to host mass numbers of tourists, that rural communities do not have that kind of capacity and that infrastructure. So agritourism is really a niche form of tourism that's, situated within tourism in general, but it's definitely not mass tourism, because you can't have masses of people descending on rural communities. There's nowhere to stay, no bathrooms, little infrastructure. So to me, it's a niche form of tourism, and I think it will stay that way. Lyra, what do you think?
I agree. I think it's a type of sustainable tourism, because we demonstrate a different attitude and different principles when we invite guests to rural agritourism. They see another attitude to nature, to people, to your roots. That's why I think it's very sustainable tourism. Of course, it's not mass tourism and never been, I guess, because not much infrastructure, and nobody want to have such a pressure on the land and on the local community. It should be rural. It should be different. This is what
Darya,
Darya.
your
Yeah,
perspectives and closing words, please.
Yes, I must agree with Valeria. Yes, we should definitely do that in a sustainable way. But I've seen one of the comments in the chat that it depends on the country. And I sort of agree with that, because for Belarus, agritourism was and is one of the most popular types of tourism. And we have many people coming to rural areas, and we are starting having enough facilities to accommodate all the tourists coming to rural areas. So for Belarus, it's sort of kind of mass tourism. But yes, I feel that we should do that in a sustainable way. And I see nothing bad in mass tourism for sure, but at the same time, we should put some boundaries, I mean, in environmental and social matters. So yes, but that's it. Thank you.
That's a great final comment, Darya, that you're really open to exploring the possibilities. And I'm glad the younger generation is picking up the mantle and moving forward as we go out to our vineyards and go skiing and leave it to you. So thank you very much for that comment. Thank you to Lisa Chase for helping us organize this webinar. Thank you to all the participants, to Darya and Dr. Valeria Klitsounova, who's been a very long time friend, and I hope to see her soon here in the United States.
Thank you,
everybody.
Yes, thanks to Todd, Lyra, and Darya. Can you see my slides now?
Yes.
Looks okay. All right. Just a couple final slides as we wrap up here. This has been a great conversation today. Thanks to Todd, Lyra, and Darya, and thanks to all of you who sent excellent questions and made comments in chat. We want to keep the conversation going in Belarus, but also all over the world. And the Global Agritourism Network is putting together a series of webinars, and we also have several committee meetings, regional committees, research committees that are also putting on webinars. So Sean is going to drop a link into chat, and here's a QR code. If you would like to learn more about the different ways to stay in touch and the upcoming events hosted by the Global Agritourism Network. And finally, I will say that one of the things that helps the Global Agritourism Network really stay in touch with everyone who's participating and also provide information for funding that we don't yet have, but that we're working on getting, is surveys and feedback. So before you close today, if you wouldn't mind clicking on a link into chat that Shauna's going to drop, or click on this QR code, and it'll take you to a short survey that just asks you, how did today work for you, this webinar? And most importantly, what else do you want to talk about in webinars and conferences? And really the big question is, what else can the Global Agritourism Network do for you, your farm, and your organization to help us all work better collectively and support agritourism? And with that, I want to close today and say, let's stay in touch, and thank you all so much.